There's the light. An evil exists that threatens every man, woman, and child of this great nation. We must take steps to ensure our domestic security and protect our homeland. That is a quote by George W. Bush on September 11th, 2001. There's also a quote given by Adolf Hitler. Hitler gave this quote after the bombing in Berlin, and it was used to unite the people of this terroristic attack that took place. You can see where I'm going. So let's talk about it. Flight 93, Flight 157, and Flight 77 were all planes that are noted on the terrible day of 9/11. Flight 93 being the one that crash-landed in Pennsylvania, Flight 157 being the one that hit the Pentagon, and Flight 77 being the one that hit the World Trade Center. But there were two planes that hit the World Trade Center. Exactly. Doesn't make sense. Now, as first off, let's talk about Flight 93. Flight 93 is supposedly crash-landed in a field in Pennsylvania, as I just said, but it landed in Cleveland, Ohio, not too terribly long after it took off in Boston. This was because there was a bomb threat that was sent out over the airwaves, and they thought that it may have been on this flight, so they did an emergency landing in Cleveland. On to the Pentagon. Pentagon, that's a whole mess up right there. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense of what's going on. If you look at security tapes that happened around the time of the explosion, or the plane hitting it, you don't see a plane. Nowhere in sight on any of the cameras that were still active after the explosion. Another thing that doesn't add up is that the Pentagon itself was only 2 stories high. So you're looking at the highest point roughly 23 feet. A Boeing 757 is 44 feet at the very back tip of the wing. The hole that was created by the explosion was 20 feet high because of the collapse that took place when the fire department was putting out the fire. And it was between 15 and 20 feet wide. The Boeing 757, from wingtip to wingtip, is 124 feet. So you're looking at almost 6 times the length of the hole that was made. So it doesn't really make sense that it hit. Another thing that doesn't add up is while the fire department that was there to put out the fire was actually there minutes before the plane hit. Also, if you look at the footage of them putting out the fire at the Pentagon, there is no visual detail of any debris from a plane on the news footage or any security footage of the cameras at the Pentagon. The fire department also put out the fire and cleaned up this debris in 8 minutes. That right there, but in itself, is a job well done. On to the World Trade Center. Flight 77 being the first plane that hit the World Trade Center. George Bush said that he remembers watching on the television the first plane hitting. This is not true because he did not have any footage of the first plane hitting, because the only footage that was found and that we have today is footage from a French camera crew that was over here doing a documentary on the New York Fire Department. So, he did not watch the first plane hit, but he could indeed have watched the second plane. For the plane to have hit the way it did, the building should have collapsed to the side of impact, but instead both buildings fell directly down. For instance, here's the building, here's the plane. Comes through, hits, falls down. Doesn't make sense. That's how most buildings fall down during a demolition. People who survived this eruption and falling of the buildings have given reports that they felt rumbling under their feet. The plane hit very high on the building, and so for people to say that they felt what was almost like an explosion under their feet below where the plane hit kind of shows proof of something else going on. Another thing that you probably are not aware of is building number 7. What is that, you may ask? It's another building that is part of the World Trade Center system. It also collapsed, but it did not get hit by anything, and it also fell in the same demolition style as the other 2 buildings. There was no demolition set that day, as you can see in the New York civil records. So it makes no sense on why it would have fallen and killed all of those innocent people. Now, for the cleanup of the World Trade Centers, they did very intense and in-depth, thorough research to find the fragments of people to try to determine who lived and who may have perished, and to try to find others who were still trapped. They did this so finely that they went through with a fine-haired toothbrush to clean and find bone fragments the size of the end of your fingernail. But yet they did not find this very important object called the black box. The black box is a large orange recording device that is in the cockpit of all planes, military, commercial, doesn't matter, they have them. They said that they could not find these. There was an interview done with a pilot who was a pilot for 57 years, and he said it is unheard of for them not to have found these boxes because they are so easy to spot. In conclusion, I have to say that you shouldn't always believe or take to heart what you see on media or what we are told by the powers that be. If you find something out and it just doesn't sit right in your gut, then you should do some research, look at all aspects of it, and you in the end make your decision. Knowledge is power, and with this knowledge we can come together and try to make sense of things that go on.